to You Multicultural channel. My name is Jhocelin Gilbert, and today at the Newcomer Network, I will be talking about stress at work with my friend Jennifer.
Hi, Jhocelin. It's
Hi.
so nice to see you today.
Oh, I'm so happy to have such a wonderful coach here today.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm very excited about this opportunity to talk to you today.
I am very
And
excited
so thank you
too.
for inviting me. I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
No, I am so much grateful.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, for sure. But first of all, let's introduce yourself to our audience.
That sounds great. As Jhocelin mentioned, my name is Jennifer. My name is actually Jennifer Beitz, and I am a life coach who is also currently teaching newcomers. I'm also an adult education instructor, and I'm currently teaching international students the administrative assistant program in the evenings, which has turned out to be more of a lesson for me than maybe my students.
Oh, yes.
Right? Teaching is like that. I show up to teach, and I've discovered that I'm actually more of a student in my role than a teacher, as they have taught me so much.
I think in our journey, because I am also a teacher, in our teaching journey, we discover that we learn more than what we teach.
Right, yes, and certainly with international students and the different perspectives and the different cultures that they bring, well, it's rich for conversations and for new learnings.
Yeah. And what about work?
Well, currently, I mentioned I am an adult education instructor, and I've been doing that for 2 years now. And I'm also a life coach, and I find that teaching and life coaching, the two blend together very well. So not only do I get to teach students the technical skills of an administrative assistant, but I also get to work on their soft skills with them. And specifically, what lights me up is emotional intelligence skills. I find that the workplace could really use people with high emotional intelligence. And I love to work with people on helping them develop their awareness, because we all know that change begins with awareness.
On the previous episodes, we have been talking about soft skills, the expectations of newcomers at workplaces. And it's good you to mention that, because once your students are ready to go to work, they will experience a few things or a few challenges that may cause stress, and this is why we want to talk about stress today.
Yes, that's such a hot topic these days, as well. I'm not sure there's any of us that don't experience stress at some time or another in our lives.
Yeah, and sometimes people don't know that they are experiencing stress.
Yeah, it's kind of like that silent, I don't want to say killer, although sometimes it can really hold us back, stress, and the way that it affects us.
Yeah, sometimes we just experience any issue with our health. Sometimes people experience headaches when they go to work.
Yes, and I've seen this, Jhocelin, both situations that we're speaking about. I've seen my students come to school feeling stressed and how that shows up in the classroom. And I've also been in the workplace where I myself have been stressed and how that shows up. And I know for me and my personal journey, when I was in the workplace, stress was very common. It was very common to feel the stress of the challenges of the day. And in my past, working as an administrative assistant, that was often a demanding role that required me to wear multiple hats. And it's also common to get caught up in saying yes to many requests. And the more we say yes to others' requests, the less we're saying yes to ourselves. And before long, we notice that our stress is starting to, the symptoms are starting to show up. And so like you mentioned, that could be the physical symptoms of headaches, it could be sweats, it could be upset stomach, even irritable bowel syndrome is something that a lot of people experience with stress. Sleep, not being able to sleep. Burnout is a big thing. When we're stressed, we often feel overwhelmed, and when we're overwhelmed, that can impact our ability to think clearly.
And struggle with our usual communication or
Yes.
relationships at work.
Yes, exactly, right? When we're stressed and we're not managing the symptoms of our stress, then we are more likely to feel irritable, we're less likely to be solving problems, and we might even be a little more introverted or isolate ourselves as the things that normally brought us joy, especially when we're dealing with stress and burnout, the things that we found recharging or enjoyable when we're in those moments of stress, we may actually pull back from and find ourselves isolating ourselves.
Yeah. And it's good to mention that.
Right.
If you are not finding this joy in things that you really like, that might be a cause of stress, because sometimes people have stress and they don't know, oh, I'm stressed.
Right. And to your point, Jhocelin, stress isn't just at work, right? We all come to work with our own relationships at home. Maybe we're a parent. Maybe we're in a relationship. Add it on, right? The stress.
You're adding and adding.
Right? Yes. What is going on at home doesn't stop when we go to work. And if our workload, maybe that's not the challenge. However, maybe we have things going on in our personal life, and that could be a challenge for us while we're at work. And so I think it's important for us to also maybe talk about what are some ways that we can manage that stress that we find pops up at home, at work, at school. If it's true that it is everywhere, well then what are some ways that we can maybe manage some of that stress?
I think identify is the number one, because sometimes people say, I don't think I'm stressed because I don't have a lot of work, but there are other issues. So I think we should start with that awareness. Yes, I'm stressed. I don't have a lot of work, but I feel stressed. I'm struggling with some relationships at work, or I'm having some issues or challenges at home.
Yes, right?
And I'm not sleeping well at night because I'm on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
I'm thinking a lot about my family from back home.
Oh gosh, when you said the phone, that really triggered me, because I think about currently as a teacher, my students are very distracted by their phones. And I have been working with them over the last 9 months to really raise their awareness of how much of a distraction it really is in our lives. And certainly how it can interrupt our sleep. And like you mentioned, Jhocelin, if we're feeling stressed, and maybe not just with our workload, but with other things going on in our lives, and then as we get ready for bed, here we find ourselves at a time when we need to recharge and shut off our minds, we're often laying in bed, mindlessly scrolling through social media, looking for something to make us feel better. At a time when we really need to disconnect from other people's opinions, from what other people might be thinking. And instead we need to, we really need to practice self-care. And right before bed is one of those opportunities where we get to choose. Do we unplug from the world and prioritize our own health and put that phone away. Here's a challenge. Let's put that phone away 30 minutes before we're going to bed. And if you really want if you really want to amp it up, and I got this tip from Mel Robbins, who is another life coach you may or may not have heard of, and Mel encourages her audience to leave your cell phone entirely out of your bedroom. So, and if you find that you use it as an alarm clock, then just go get an alarm clock. Okay, and keep
Can you
that
find
phone.
that now?
Say that again.
Can you find an alarm clock now? Can you buy that?
Right? I'm not sure about that. Although Amazon has everything. So you'd be amazed what you can find there. So Jhocelin, I think that there are things that we can do after we've had a stressful day to help us unwind and recharge, knowing that the next day those stresses aren't necessarily going to go away.
Yeah. You know, I think meditation and reflecting on your day, maybe having a journal.
Those are all things that speak right to my heart, Jhocelin. I have my own personal journey of feeling stressed at work. Several years ago, I wasn't feeling fulfilled in the current position that I had. I felt I was living a life of a victim. It seemed like the world was against me, and I didn't know where to turn. Friends at the time were encouraging me to seek out meditation. And I remember at that time rolling my eyes, thinking, what is meditation going to do for me? Don't you understand? I'm stressed. I need a release. Right? And I laugh now because I'm like, that's why your friend told you about meditation.
And mindfulness.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. I cannot do that much mindfulness, but yeah, that works. That works.
You
and
can do
you
mindfulness.
You mentioned something when you said that your work was not that
fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's something very common with us as newcomers. When we arrive, we find a job that this is not our dream job, but we have to get it because we have no other option. We have to work on the permanent residence, and we have to to complete our process as an immigrant.
Yes.
So this is another cost.
Right. And for many newcomers, often they are alone. Right? Not everyone comes with family.
Yeah.
And so just being able to manage all that on your own is a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, having a support group.
Right?
It's important.
And so for me, when I found meditation, I started using an app called Headspace. And at that time, they were offering just 10 days for free. And I started using that app, Jhocelin, and I just took off. I became a subscriber back in 2014. So it's been 10 years of me diving deep into the Headspace app and learning how to sit in silence. And to your point, learning to reflect. And journaling is another habit of mine that through those practices, that has allowed me to slow down and to start practicing self-care, knowing that I'm going to be in stressful situations, whether I'm a student, whether I'm a parent, whether I'm an employee, whether I'm a business owner. All of those situations are stressful. They're full of challenges, right? And it's only when we dig deep and we meet the challenges of the day and how we can gain that resilience to be able to meet those challenges is through these practices I'm mentioning.
And it's very important to practice that because as you mentioned, as you said, challenges will be there.
Yes.
You will have peaks and valleys. So when you're struggling with something, you need to know how to deal with that. You know
Right.
something that has helped me a lot? Exercising.
Yes.
I don't like exercise. I'm not a gym friend. I'm not a friend of the gym.
Right.
But in the morning, I'm taking about 5 to 10 minutes for stretching and 15 minutes walking.
Oh.
And that has helped a lot.
Right, just the simple exercise of walking. I think that sometimes simple isn't so simple, and that at times we make things complicated. And we think, oh, I can only exercise in the gym. And to your point, just 10 minutes a day can really have an impact on your mental health, your physical health, your emotional well-being, right? And if we can have an impact on all of that, then when we show up in situations where there's stress, we're no longer feeling overwhelmed by it. Rather, we're feeling empowered to make a choice on how we're going to show up in these stressful situations.
Yeah. And having a circle around us, as I mentioned before, it's something else that might help. You know, just try not to be by yourself all the time. Maybe you don't have a family, but make friends. Go
Right.
outside. Network.
Absolutely. Join a sports group. That's a great way to network. Become a volunteer. Manitoba has a rich community for volunteering. That's a great way to meet new people, to make new contacts. There's many meetup groups here now. Talk to people in your current network about those opportunities. It's really about getting out of your comfort zone, right? You know that all too well. It's when we are willing to try new things, to get out of our comfort zone, that we experience the most growth and or transformation.
Yeah. And let's go back to how we started.
Yeah.
When you identify those stressors, work on those ones. For example, if you're struggling with something in your home, try to deal with that. Just, I'm stressed because I'm having a challenge with my son, but how am I going to solve it?
Right.
You know, work on those stressors. You're challenged with a job. Okay, find another job.
Right.
Or you're having an issue with a colleague, talk to that colleague.
Right. So I know for myself in the workplace that we don't always get along with all of our coworkers. And just like stress shows up in the workplace, so does conflict. And we have to find ways to manage our communication skills, our nonverbal communication, our emotional intelligence, so that we are able to strengthen those relationships as well. And we can achieve that by surrounding ourselves at times with maybe professionals, maybe we are parents, and maybe we are having some challenges with our children. That's when we get to have conversations with their teachers, with their coaches, with their people who they are in care with when they're not with us, to find out what are some ways that we can solve some of the issues between us.
Yeah, look for help.
Absolutely. I think that there is no shame in asking for help, and that it's when we're willing to reach out to others and have those difficult conversations and be vulnerable with others, that we may hear something for the first time that really resonates with us and encourages us to think differently.
And it's okay to be vulnerable.
Oh,
it's okay.
Right.
Sometimes we feel, oh, I cannot make a mistake. I don't want people to know what I'm struggling with. But it's okay.
And you know what, Jhocelin, it makes me think of perfectionism. and how as women particularly, we do strive to be perfect. Though a lot of the messages that women get revolve around that perfectionism or that messaging that you have to do it all. And today I really want to encourage people and remind people to reach out to others and don't isolate yourself and feel that you have to do everything alone. Try to open yourself up to new situations, to new people. And as a newcomer, you know exactly what that's like, to leave the known for the unknown. And it's, again, in that challenge that we rise to a new awareness, to a new level, and a new way of thinking.
Yeah. Take that as an opportunity to learn something.
Right?
And learning something, it's important too. Like, it's gonna help you. When you focus on learning something instead of struggling with what you're struggling with.
Yeah, right? Or afraid to make that mistake. I see this a lot with my students. When, for an example, I want them to think on a topic first. Don't go to ChatGPT. Don't go to Google. Just give yourself a moment. Because I know it's within you. I know you have ideas. I know you have opinions. And at times we're afraid to express them, right? For the fear of that rejection, right? We want to be accepted. And I want to encourage people to take that risk, to make mistakes. That's how we learn how to become better, right? And I've got a history of making mistakes. And I didn't want to show myself and my authentic side. And you know what that got me, Jhocelin? Stressed.
Oh.
And burned out.
Yeah.
And afraid to be myself.
Sometimes we just want to do a lot of things to show that we can.
Right?
And we get overwhelmed and stressed.
Yes.
And we want to be so perfectionist. We don't want to make mistakes. And we add that to the stress.
Yes.
And stress and stress. And we struggle with other things adding to the cup until...
Well, until our bodies indicate enough.
Yeah.
And that stress can show up as illness, as disease, as irritable bowel, right? As it can manifest in our bodies in ways that we can't see until it shows up. A heart attack.
And
right?
even emotionally, you can affect your family because when you're under stress, you're yelling to your children. Everything is affecting you. You are overreacting to very simple things. Your relationship with your partner, and everything has been affected because you're adding more and more and more.
Yes, and it compounds. And Jhocelin, it makes me think of how you mentioned fitness, right? And exercise. And that oftentimes, and I can speak to this from my own personal experience, as I currently am on my own fitness journey due to going to the doctors and finding out that I was pre-diabetic.
Wow.
And that was due to my eating and lack of exercise.
Oh, that's something else.
Right?
Eating well.
Right? And when the doctor told me that, I immediately took action. And I am in week 15 of my journey right now. I decided to challenge myself to a 30-day challenge of exercising for 30 minutes a day and not to miss 2 days in a row. And I ended up developing a pattern where I am exercising for 30 minutes a day for 6 days a week. I was able to lose 20 pounds.
Wow.
I was able to change my diet. And I just got confirmation from my doctor that I'm no longer pre-diabetic.
Yay.
Right? And I'll tell you, my stress levels have gone down significantly despite being in a lot of stressful situations.
Yeah, because that doesn't mean you're not going to be stressed.
No, it does not.
That doesn't mean you're not going to be in stressful situations.
Right.
They will always be there.
Yes. And now I'm finding my inner resilience to meet the stress of the day is allowing me to feel more empowered to show up as my authentic self, to make those mistakes that we so often want to hide from others. I just want to be vulnerable and authentic because I know what's on the other side. And that's me. And when I get to be me, well, that's when I'm my happiest. And I don't feel stressed out. And if you remember when I had said back in my journey, when I wasn't feeling fulfilled at work, I started to do the work. I started to do my inner work to slowly unravel from feeding the stress and constantly reacting to the stress. And I discovered ways of how to become more aware and to really prioritize my own self-care. Because when you're stressed, that's when you need to really prioritize your self-care. And oftentimes we have so many responsibilities that we have said yes to and for some of us it's due to people-pleasing behaviors, and that's a topic for a whole other conversation. However, it's by constantly saying yes to others that we increase our stress, and that decreases that time for us to recharge.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of flipping it, and now I'm exercising and my daily practices of meditation and journaling. And now, despite the stress, I'm not feeling as stressed.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Can you mention just a little bit about that pleasing behavior?
Oh, people-pleasing behavior? Oh, yeah, I can talk about that for days. And the reason I can talk about that for days is that used to be me.
Oh.
And now I have a daughter who has people-pleasing tendencies. And the timing of your question is on point.
Just a little bit.
Well, in fact, today I just had a candid conversation with my daughter about her people-pleasing tendencies. As she contacted me, and she was indecisive. Someone had asked her to do something that would require her time, and my daughter didn't want to do it and didn't know how to say no to that person, especially because it was a relationship that she wanted to keep intact. And this was my opportunity to have a conversation with her, as I found that I didn't have these conversations with my parents. And now's my opportunity to parent differently. And so I had a conversation with my daughter that asked her, is this something you want to do? No, it isn't. All right. Then how would you like to respond? Well, what can I say? You know what you can say? You can say no. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to give a reason, right? Oftentimes we get stuck in our own heads about, well, what's a good enough reason for saying no?
No.
You don't need a reason to say no.
The reason is no.
And I also encouraged my daughter, I would like to know, what is the worst case scenario if you do say no? And when she took a moment to think about that, she was able to have more clarity about the why around her no. And it was through our conversation that I was able to raise her awareness to her people-pleasing behaviors, and we discovered that she didn't want to upset that person by saying no, and that she forgot about herself. And I reminded her that her self-care in her time and energy is just as important as another person's time and energy.
Yeah.
And you get to decide where you spend your time and energy.
Yeah, and it happens in all scenarios.
All scenarios.
Because at work, okay, can you do this? Oh, yes, I can.
Right?
Can you do that? And you're having lots of things to do because you just cannot say
No.
no.
Right? You don't want to let other people down. You don't want to face...
sometimes feeling, oh, I'm going to miss my work. I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
Or they think I am not able to make it.
Yes, and my daughter was feeling that as well, as it was an important relationship to her. And you know, Jhocelin, when we got off the phone and she made her decision, and in that moment it was a no, and she responded very with clarity to the person, her energy changed immediately.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's what I want to empower others with. I want you to know that you get to choose, right? And honestly, if someone can't accept your no, then you need to reevaluate that relationship. Because the people who love you and respect you will accept a yes and a no. And that's the lesson I want to teach my daughter. Especially, she's aged 22 and she's getting ready to go into that workforce. And she's going to hear, there's a lot of people-pleasing behavior going on in the workplace. And if I can somehow equip her with the knowledge and the awareness to have difficult conversations and to be able to say no, especially under pressure, then I feel like I'm giving her life lessons that are going to carry her well into adulthood.
I think you have to come back to talk about difficult conversations.
Oh, I would love to come back and talk about difficult conversations.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your time.
Oh, thank
you so much.
You're welcome, Jhocelin.
I really enjoyed this chat.
As did I, and I look forward to having many more.
Yeah. And thank you to our wonderful audience once again for being here with us, and see you next time at You Multicultural Channel. My name is Jhocelin Gilbert, and this is the Newcomer Network, your favorite place. Bye!